Sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve.
Back here, first things first, we're joined by former Pro Bowl cornerback Brandon Flowers. Welcome to the show, Brandon.
What's up, baby?
Hey, what's up, baby?
Nice to see you.
All right.
I'm not going to reach all the way over there, but it is great to have you here. All right, let's get into it. By now, we have all seen what happened at the end of that Browns-Steelers game between Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph. One of the ugliest brawls in recent memory. It resulted in multiple fines and suspensions. Myles Garrett was suspended indefinitely for his role. Browns head coach Freddie Kichens said yesterday he's still standing by Garrett, still supports him. But former Browns offensive coordinator Todd Haley had this to say about the team's lack of discipline when he joined Adam Shine on SiriusXM Radio.
This, to me, this comes back to coaching. This falls squarely right on the head coach, because the head coach talks to every assistant coach who then talk to their groups of players. And there's an old saying in coaching, you're either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. And when I watch the Cleveland Browns, I see a lot of stuff being allowed to happen, whether it's clown shoes, visors, whatever it may be. Myles Garrett hitting the quarterback low, hitting the quarterback in the head. It's happening too much. It's not just a fluke.
All right, Nick, give us a little, give us a little context, a little where Todd Haley is coming from before you tell us if he's right or not.
People should know that Todd was the offensive coordinator of the Browns last season, and I mentioned this the day after the Myles Garrett stuff happened, that there was a very interesting moment on Hard Knocks when Greg Williams, who was the defensive coordinator for the Browns last season at the time, before he gets elevated and Todd gets fired, they hit the quarterback late in practice. And Todd loses it. And Todd and Greg go at it, and then that week in the preseason game, they end up losing the game because they can't get off the field because of a defensive penalty, and Hard Knocks cameras cut to Todd, who says, well, it's how we practice. That should, you know what I mean? We deserve to lose that way. And Brandon can speak to this better than I can, because I covered Todd and know Todd. Brandon actually played for him. This is Todd's philosophy, that what happens on the football field, especially from a obeying the rules standpoint, if you will, not just execution, but whether or not you're a sloppy football team, is a direct indictment or referendum on the head coach. I don't blame Freddie Kichens for Myles Garrett going whack-a-mole on Mason Rudolph's head. But the bigger picture for why Myles Garrett would have ever been in that situation, taking the quarterback to the ground late in a game that had been decided, the Browns being a heavily penalized team, the Browns being a team that, while I don't care about Odell's watch or shoes, certainly that would have been nipped in the bud, whether it's an issue or not, earlier in other organizations. I do think Todd is right that Freddie Kichens was the substitute teacher that got elevated to school superintendent, and all of a sudden you got kids running roughshod over him in the hallways. Like, that does appear to be what's going on in Cleveland. So I think I can't blame Freddie for the specific ugly incident, but the lead up to it, I think, does fall at the feet of the head coach.
I think Todd Haley is semi-right. You have to have somewhere in the middle, because Todd Haley is a drill sergeant. We all know that. And Freddie Kichens is a player's coach. With that personality that Cleveland has with Odell Beckham, they have loud personalities. So you can't be a drill sergeant, because you've seen what happened when Josh McDaniels went to Denver. If you're too rough on a big personality team, it can go all haywire. Nobody wants to listen. Everybody wants to do what they want to do. When it refers to clown shoes and visors, receivers, defensive backs, they the prima donnas on the team. Guys are going to wear the cleats that they want to wear, the visors that they want to wear. Sometimes we went into games playing for Todd Haley. If our cleats look nice and it wasn't a dress code, we'll say, hey, we're going to take the fine this week. I mean, I just like these cleats that we're going to take. So that's just have something on what the players want to do. And my thing with Freddie Kichens isn't the discipline he have on the team. It's more about him being a coach and being too much of a player's coach. When Odell Beckham missed in voluntary camp, he was on Odell Beckham's side, saying, hey, he'll get in the playbook. It is voluntary. Instead of saying, hey, he needs to be here. We would like for him to be acclimated with his team. His players need to know what kind of guy he is. He took Odell's side. So when you be too much of a player's coach, sometimes players feel that they can react and act a certain way on the field.
He's always taken the player's side, though, Greg. He's taken basically taken, he said what he did. He's not condoning what Myles Garrett did, but we support him. We're behind him. I mean, he's taking the player's side at every chance he could take.
Yeah, Brendan hit it right on the head. This is who Freddie Kichens is. He's a player's coach. But as a player's coach, players tend to play for guys that are going to side with them. However, when I look at Todd Haley, you listen to him, and the first thing that jumps out is, man, this guy is a little bitter. But to your point, this is who he's always been.
Yeah.
He's a drill sergeant. He's a guy that this is how we practice, this is how we dress, this is what's necessary, this is why we win. And when you deal with personalities that you mentioned, you have to give and take somewhere.
Right.
And so when you're looking at Freddie Kichens and you're looking at all this talent and all these personalities, you can't nitpick every single thing. And so what we saw translate on the football field with Myles Garrett, that is not a direct reflection of Freddie Kichens. That is all solely on Myles Garrett. Now, them being one of the highest penalized teams and being undisciplined, that is where I agree with Todd Haley.
Well,
that is a direct reflection of Freddie Kichens.
Listen, there are certainly some players, coaches, that get the absolute most out of their team and that are great coaches in this league. I would argue Andy Reid.
Yeah.
Andy Reid, which is, I think, where you were going.
What I was gonna
so,
ask
like,
you about.
Jenna covered Andy Reid. This is how he's been at every step, which is he will put his arms around you. He will say, listen, I don't care what the outside noise is. We're here together. And, by the way, Andy Reid teams are not always the most buttoned-up teams.
Yeah.
The Chiefs have had issues with penalties. He's not a perfect coach, by far. But you can see what schematic advantages he gives you. You can say, here's why Andy Reid is a coach we want, even with some of the negatives that go along with not having the most buttoned-up team. The problem for Freddie Kichens is I've got a whole list of things in the ledger that say where he's a problem. And I'm yet to find anything in the positive. So it'd be one thing if, all right, they're heavily penalized and you had this ugly incident.
But Baker's playing lights out.
But
and he was elevated for Baker Mayfield, and Baker's tremendous. He's right. You can't find
You
something.
can't find the argument for Freddie Kichens. Like, there's an argument for the Tom Coughlin style of coaching. There's an argument for the players coach style of coaching. There's an argument for a happy medium. But for any of those styles, you have to be bringing something to the table, and that's something I'm yet to see from Freddie Kichens with this Browns team.
And the thing I don't agree with also with Freddie Kichens is Odell Beckham wants the ball, and he actually comes to the media and says, we need to feed Odell Beckham the ball. You have Chubb running the ball. You have Landry. To me, he's a modern-day Hines Ward. He's going to do the dirty work. He's going to catch all the intermediate passes. You have a tight end that can beat one-on-one coverage. It's like, why do we need to feed Odell the ball? But that's too much of a player's coach, again, just going by what the players are saying, and I think it's starting to cause a distraction in the locker room.
Brandon, maybe if Odell came to OTAs, he would have gotten the ball more. I'm just saying. All right, Brandon, stick around. Coming up, is there a real reason to be concerned about the Chiefs' offense? That's next on First Things First.